Merry Meet, Annie here. This video is in response to this week's topic on the pagan perspective, which is Gypsy Magick. And the email we received was from Emerald Amber Lynn. And she mentioned that as part of her heritage, she is exploring Gypsy Magick, or the Gypsy way. And she's drawn to all things gypsy, like tarot. So Emerald Amber Lynn, I don't know if your question is, what do we know of it, or have we experienced it? And if that is the question, I know very little about Gypsy Magick. It's not part of my cultural or ethnic heritage and is not something I have studied. So you will probably know a lot more than I do on this particular subject. I do feel it is important that when we study that, we do as you do, explore folk traditions, magic, ethnic and indigenous spirituality, and sense of place that is part of our heritage. There's great power in that. There's something in the blood and in the instinct and in our bones that connects us to the experiences of the ancestors who have come before us. So I am highly supportive of the time and effort it takes, and it's not always easy to explore one's ethnic past. I use myself as an example. Whatever the ethnic, cultural history of my family was, in the generation of my grandparents, it became very important to them, in their time, to Americanize that. And it became diluted and not celebrated. And there may have been a few bits of ethnic cooking and some craft work. I think especially with my Dutch history, lace making was part of my grandmother and her grandmother's time. But in general, when that generational shift happened, especially from the time of my grandmother to my mother, there was an Americanization that happened where we lost so much of whatever that historical and cultural root was in our family. And that is an unfortunate thing. It happens to many of us that we actually have to go on a search for our own historical and cultural roots. Ethnicity runs deeper than where we know our families were raised, or the color of our skin, or the religion of our families, but often that can be lost. So while I do not have practice of Gypsy Magick, or even really know anybody who does practice it, what I do know is that Emerald Amber Lynn, you mentioned it was part of your heritage. And so here's to you for exploring it and investigating it, and coming into touch with some of the history for you and your family that may have been lost if you did not pursue studying where you came from. So for this week, the only response I really have to the idea of Gypsy Magick, or the Gypsy way, is how important it is that we explore our own cultural, ethnic, and spiritual roots, to see what of it lives on in us. We can almost be a reconstructionist of our own history when we follow our curiosity to learn about those who came before us in our family. And I do know from my own experiences that anyone I know who has become back in contact, if they were not, if their family had lost contact with the old ways of their very family, discovers a powerful connection to the past, which is that forward momentum and the power that washes down through the generations. So here's to your learning more about the history of your family and what Gypsy Magick, or the Gypsy way, might have meant to them. And here's to all of us who, in the process of exploring new horizons spiritually, often become aware of the flow of time that brought us to who we are now, and therefore the beauty of exploring the path of our ancestors. I wish you mirth and reverence. Mary part.